This weekend, we have the beautiful readings about marriage, about how two people become one flesh, and how beautiful that is, that sacrament of marriage that God has given us. Allowing two people to become one, and what a beautiful witness it is to the world. That marriage covenant where these two are this one flesh, and they are for the world, showing that love of God and how beautiful that is. But we know that, marriage is not something easy. Even though that it's full of joy and happiness, it's not an easy endeavor. We see the Pharisees, the disciples asking these questions about divorce. And we know that, they're not asking it because everybody, has a perfect marriage and, that it's perfectly fine and everything's going to be okay. They are asking these because there's turmoil. St. Francis de Sales says that, marriage is a constant mortification. There's always mortification happening. In order to be that one flesh, there has to be self-sacrifice on both sides. And that's where that love of God, is communicated to the world. We know that our Lord Jesus Christ took on human flesh. And he took on all the sin of the world, and he died on the cross for us. How beautiful that love for us he has. And in the same way, marriage, it's dying to one another so that the other may live. Just as Jesus died so that we may all live. And we come here today to celebrate that sacrifice in the Mass. And it is here that our Lord teaches us, to accept that sacrifices in our life, to accept that sacrificial love, and to communicate that to the world. And how beautiful that is communicated within marriage. But so often we see, marriages in turmoil. When things get difficult, people walk away. But there's always that constant call to dig deeper, to find that joy that is in marriage. Allowing the Lord to be at the center. When the Lord is at the center of our life, especially at the center of a marriage, it's better not only for that couple, but for the society as a whole. We got good and holy marriages in our society. How much better our society is. And we know that, as St. Francis de Sales says, it's a constant mortification. Marriage is something that constantly needs to be worked on. Something that needs to be renewed. It's not just the day that you're married, that covenant takes place, but it's for the rest of the life of that couple, that they are one flesh, that they are, to grow together and to communicate that love of God into the world. But we know that, knowing that it's not easy, that it can be difficult, they need support from, outside of themselves. As a Christian community, we are, called to help one another on our path to holiness, on our path to heaven. Marriage is one of those great paths to heaven, when it's lived out well. And it's something that we need to support. Support good and holy marriages, within our families, within our community, within the world. Because we know that the more that we have these good and holy families, the more that we have God's love being communicated to the world with these good and holy marriages, the better off society will be as a whole. Let us, help one another, especially in those difficult times. If you're in a marriage and you're struggling to ask for that help, to look at where you can work on it, to gain that love of God back in that life. As a community, reaching out and helping, but most of all, just praying for good and holy marriages. It's something so often we can forget to do, is to sit down and to pray, for good and holy marriages, good and holy families, to bring that light of Christ into the world. This month we celebrate the month of the Rosary. We're here at Our Lady of the Rosary Cathedral, and how beautiful it would be if, we just prayed even like once a week, a rosary for good and holy marriages. Now, how better off society would be, because we'd have these good and holy marriages, being protected by Our Lady. Now, let us never forget, this great gift that God has given us. This gift of the sacrament of marriage. From the beginning of time, in his great wisdom, he's been calling couples to this great covenant. Let us not forget this beautiful, beautiful gift. And let us protect it as much as we can, for those who are in marriage, protecting your own marriage, but also as a community praying and supporting those marriages in our life. So that just as, Jesus' love is communicated to us all here at the sacrament of the Eucharist, that love of Jesus can be communicated to the world through that sacrament of marriage.